want you to imagine for a second that you are me, and you're on this spiritual quest for truth and enlightenment. You've done ayahuasca a few times and found both truth and enlightenment there in terrifying abundance. And so now you are looking for cheaper and safer alternative sources. And you find it in the fascinating world that is astral projection. And so you dive in head first, and on your first breakthrough experience, this happens. And the energy built to a crescendo, to an apex, and the intensity of that, y'all, sent me launching. And I had no idea what happened. I just launched somewhere. Next thing you know, I saw this like pattern that was directly in front of my face. Didn't know what the heck was going on. But here's ultimately what happened. So I'm laying there, the energy's building and building to a critical mass, and I went instantly from here to there. I shot into my curtain. But as vivid and as real as that experience was for me, the pattern in the curtain that was this close from my astral face did not look like this. It looked like this. This is a big, really big problem. And so, if I am searching for universal truth and enlightenment through the medium of astral projection, as insignificant as a decorative pattern on a curtain may seem, this is still a catastrophic failure. But is that it? Is that the full story here with astral projection? Like we can close the book and then throw it away and then burn it and then throw the baby out with the bathwater too, and the kitchen sink while we're at it? Like this whole concept is officially dead to us because of this discrepancy or other discrepancies in the astral projection experience? My answer to that is absolutely not. Believe it or not, any and all of these discrepancies not only reconcile, but do so in a way that not only hints towards, but parades a whole new way to conceptualize the whole of reality and beyond as we know it. Not too long ago, my longtime collaborator and I sat down to discuss the topic of astral projection as a whole. And the deeper we got into that discussion, the deeper we dove into the abyss of reality itself. An abyss so deep, there are no curtains to speak of. So once again, y'all, I find myself standing in front of a whiteboard about to do a cosmic deep dive on some very mind-blowing stuff. And the reason I'm here doing it again is because while I was scrubbing through the footage of the interview between me and my long-term collaborator, I noticed that I glossed through some very important, germane, and very weighty topics. Like he and I had read the same book, okay, and we were on the same page, pun intended, about these topics. And I just we were just like, oh, you remember this? He's like, yeah, and we moved on, all right? But we need to dive deep into them, y'all, because otherwise we're not going to be able to fully appreciate or understand the otherwise seemingly insignificant problem that we have here, y'all, of this discrepancy between the curtain pattern that I saw in the astral plane and my perception of that curtain pattern versus the actual curtain pattern in real existence. And I put real existence in quotes here because, again, I say this on just about every one of my podcast episodes, y'all. The 2022 Nobel Prize for Physics was awarded to scientists who proved, y'all, that this universe is not locally real, that it is what the mystics have been saying for millennia, it is basically an illusion. So it follows that basically anything that you experience in this reality, y'all, is not what it seems. And that's what gets me to the book that I talked about that me and my longtime collaborator had both read. It's a book called The Case Against Reality by Donald Hoffman. I highly suggest you go buy and read this book. If you don't want to read it or whatever, y'all, if you can just go watch interviews from the man himself. There's plenty of them out there. I'll put my favorites in the description. Go watch that stuff. Absolutely amazing. But the basis of his argument, y'all, is expanding upon something that psychonauts who have gone deep enough come away with from their experiences. And that is that there seems to be a broader reality beyond the tiny sliver of reality that we have evolved to see that seems to be more real than this illusory reality, again, that we've evolved to see. And it made total sense to me because the very first thing that I noticed, y'all, the very first thought that I had after my first psychedelic experience and then subsequent psychedelic experiences thereafter was like, wow, this was so real. It was undeniably real. Why haven't human beings evolved to experience this hyper reality, especially if you get unbelievably deep and profound insights from it? And then it hit me. It's like, well, duh. The reason why we don't experience that, we've evolved away from it, is because it is so hyper intense that we would be in such awe of these cosmic things that we're constantly seeing that we would not run away or flee from potentially harmful real threats in the real physical existence that's, dominated by survival. And so if you're sitting there trying to comprehend this unbelievably beautiful, like kaleidoscope, geometrical thing that's cosmic and showing you and teaching you all these like fractal, like deeply profound knowledge and stuff like that, if you're looking at something so beautiful, so amazing, and sometimes so terrifying, it's not even going to register in your brain to run away from a saber-toothed tiger if one leaps out of the bushes to come get you. You're dead because you're sitting there trying to figure this out. You're dead. And so that is the reason that I thought we evolved out of that. I remember telling a friend about this, and he was like, oh, dude, well, that's exactly what Aldous Huxley says in his book, The Doors of Perception. By the way, the band The Doors got their name from that book. But I was like, wow, other people have thought about this too? Wow. And then, of course, I found, Dr. Donald Hoffman's book, and he takes this whole concept to the next level. It's like, not only is it that, not only would you be seeing something so cosmically amazing that you wouldn't run away from potential threats, but he says, forget the cosmic geometric stuff to begin with, right? Just take regular everyday objects, like, I don't know, pen's probably not the best example. Take this cup, right? This cup, y'all, according to Donald Hoffman, extends into cosmic realms. Okay, it's not just a physical object in this existence. This is the icon, the symbol that is this cup, is just the tip of the iceberg of the true reality of what this cup actually is. There is an infinite amount of complexity in this cosmic object. Now, Donald Hoffman calls them energy trade-offs. We do not need to understand all of the infinite complexity of this cup, all of the different spins of every single electron in this cup, like the way light interacts with all of the electrons and stuff like that, and how it's absorbed and reflected, and every single molecule and subatomic particle in this cup. There is so much stuff, y'all, just in this physical existence that we know of, that science can even wrap its arms around, y'all. There's so much information about this cup that we don't need to know. If our brains had evolved to understand that, it's a waste of energy. We would be sitting there the whole day trying to comprehend the tiniest detail about this glass instead of using it for its intended purpose, which is to drink water. And that's what we've done. We've evolved out of needing to know all the complex, cosmic information. Because again, y'all, make no mistake about it. We do not know, and never will, in my opinion, everything that could be known about this glass. We only know the limits to which science can tell us what this glass is. Okay, but make no mistake about it. There is a reality of this glass, this cup, beyond that which science can even come close to understanding. So we don't even need to know all that science knows about this, y'all, much less the cosmic reaches of what this cup represents. And because of that, our brain, to simplify all of this nonsense, papers over all that infinite complexity with a symbol. It's like, I don't need to know all the details. All I need to know is that it holds water, and that I turn this like this, and the water falls out of the cup and into my belly where I get nourishment and sustenance. That's the whole theory. I honestly don't need to get into the rest of this. It actually kind of bums me out that I'm not going to use this diagram in the video. I mean, I had some really artistic, achievements here with the moon and Jupiter and the Andromeda galaxy and these super cluster of galaxies and stuff like that. And it is what it is, though. Okay, so I'm going to try to film myself filming this so I can have something to cross-cut to. I could do a screen capture thing here, but I want this to be organic. Anyway, so according to Donald Hoffman's theory, the whole of reality, all of existence as we know it, can be thought of basically as a computer monitor, okay? Whatever your desktop is for your operating system or whatever, that is the whole physical universe. Anything that our science can look and point to, right, is basically the equivalent of a computer monitor. And anything that we know of in the universe, like these macroscopic objects or even microscopic objects, y'all, any physical thing in the physical universe that we know of can be thought of as icons on the desktop, right? And so you have an icon. Let's say that you yourself as a person are this, you're this AP theory Word doc, right? Your best friend is this little screenshot here. Y'all are both icons. And then the cup that you drank out of earlier is, I don't know, this screenshot right here. This one right here. And so there are all these different icons. But remember, as I said earlier, we are all cosmic objects. Every one of these icons, even this little pen, even this camera that I'm holding, the planet Mars, like all this stuff, your mother. I hate to bring your mom into this, but we are all these cosmic objects that the tips of the iceberg dip into this physical existence, and then we build maps and meanings and create symbols or icons of that. We paper over that infinite complexity with meaning, and that's what these icons are. Like, does my actual Word document exist in that icon? No, it doesn't. It actually truly exists in the ones and zeros and the transistors down in the CPU. So the reality of this monitor, y'all, does not constitute the reality of what this actual Word document truly represents. That reality is far more complex. Even if you were to drill down into the pixels, let's say that you're trapped on this monitor like we are in this physical existence, and you were to try to drill down and figure out everything there is to know on this monitor. You see those pixels, like kind of the striations there? Those are pixels. That's as far down as we can drill into this monitor to figure out all there is to know about this icon. So we've come away with our subatomic particles and atoms and all this other stuff that represent the pixels of this thing, but we are no closer to understanding the true reality of what this actual Word document truly is, because all we've found is the smallest unit of measurement that can be found on the monitor. Again, the true reality of those icons exists here. Now, does that mean that this is truly an illusion in the sense that it's not real? Not exactly, y'all, because define reality. Reality is incredibly hard to define, especially when there are actual real consequences that exist on this computer monitor. For example, if I take my Word document that I worked hard on and I drag it down into the recycling bin, which is also an icon, by the way, you know, the reality of what that recycling bin represents is not actually a real trash can, obviously. But you can see I just put it in the trash can, and if I were to purge the trash now, it would be gone forever, right? There are consequences, right? Ooh, I don't want to do that. Put back. So there are consequences to what happens here in this physical existence, much like if you were to jump in front of a speeding car, you would get hit and possibly killed. You'd get injured at the least and then possibly killed. So there are severe consequences, and you can call that real. But the realness, y'all, is not you or the car. It's just the consequences of that. The car is just an icon of a cosmic object, as are you. And again, I know I'm kicking a dead horse here, y'all, but figuring out everything there is to know about an icon down to the pixel level does not even come close to the true reality. The leap that you have to make from the desktop down to the CPU where the transistors are, which is the true reality of that document, y'all, is insurmountable. You can't even fathom. If you're living and stuck on a monitor, you will never be able to get to that reality no matter how hard you try. But even if you could leap down into the CPU to see the full reality of that icon, there is no way that you'll be able to make heads or tails of it, y'all, because again, your reality, your whole existence, and then the whole existence of your species, y'all, has been on that computer monitor, okay? There is no way that you will be able to relate anything that you see down in that CPU to anything that you have experienced, even drilling down to the pixel level on your monitor. And so to close everything out, to bring everything back home here, we're going to bring back our friend, the cosmic cup, right? And we're going to talk about its cosmic origins as a cosmic object, right? But first we have to start on the computer monitor that is our physical reality, this physical existence, this universe. And again, I don't truly believe that we live on a computer monitor for real. That's just an analogy, okay? But we start off with this cup in our physical existence, and we're trying to figure out everything there is to know about this cup, right? So we drill down, into the ceramic of the cup, and we see that it's made of molecules. And we're like, oh, I wonder what this molecule is made of. So we zoom in and we find an atom. We're like, oh, that's cool. I wonder what the atom's made of. And we zoom in further and we find subatomic particles like electrons. And we're like, wow, an electron is both a wave and a particle. Wow, I wonder what that's made of. And we zoom in, and boom, we have hit the lower limits, y'all, of how much we can zoom into our monitor. Okay, we've seen the pixel, which is the subatomic particle, and we can go no further. What is this made of? No one knows. Nobody knows. Like, is it a superstring? Is it a blah, blah, blah? No one knows. But to get to the real truth about what this object really is and what it's truly made of, we have to look at the hyperreality aspect. We have to drill down past the monitor into the CPU. And again, I don't think this is really a CPU, but we have to look into the hyperreality of the 98% of the rest of the iceberg. As you can see, here's this little cup that represents like 2% of the whole object that exists in our reality, right? But the true reality of this cup bleeds over and spills over and primarily exists in this hyperreality, like cosmic realm. And what constitutes a cup here, y'all? Completely unknown to us until you start to take, I hate to go there, mind-altering substances or have any kind of other experience that leads you to a high gamma state in your brain where you can broaden your window of reality. So once you start to breach this divide here between reality and hyperreality, you start to kind of get a little peek of a little bit more of this iceberg, what this cup truly represents. And this is why when people go deep enough into psychedelics, they be holding a cup in their hands and they're looking at it and they don't even know what they're holding anymore. It becomes this weird amorphous object. Like for me, I saw things like they would morph into a painting of a cup and then a cartoon of a cup and then just a trapezoid and then this weird shape, and a cup starts to lose meaning when you start to get so much more information out of a cup because synesthesia is bleeding all around your brain and everything, and these parts of your brain that have never been in contact with each other or in contact, and they're perceiving more information. There's a tipping point at which you're getting so much information about a cup that you start to forget what it is because you're seeing it in a completely different perspective in a whole new light. This is when we've breached this reality boundary and we're starting to see more information, more parts of this cosmic object. And it's so foreign and alien to us that your brain starts to pattern over this amorphous thing with anything it can draw upon from its memory of the monitor. So anything it's seen out here, it can't comprehend what it's seeing here, so it starts to pattern and map over the remainder of this cosmic object with some nonsense, honestly. And so, to tie this all back to the curtain, okay, the pattern of the curtain on my astral experience not matching the pattern in real life. Do you think that it truly matters, y'all, as your mind is starting to bridge this divide and look into the CPU? You're going from the monitor into the CPU. And your brain is trying to understand what it's seeing here in this completely foreign and alien place, right? Do you think that little details like patterns that are drawn onto a cup or patterns that are sewn into a fabric, do you think that that is more important than the actual cup or curtain itself? Yes or no? I'm going to lean towards no. In fact, I think when your brain is patterning over here trying to figure out what it's looking, it's trying its best to hold on to any information that it can possibly remember here so it can relate it to this crazy foreign alien experience that it's having over here. And because I didn't even remember what the friggin' pattern of my curtain was to begin with, y'all, I'm not a very observant person in terms of like things that aren't affecting my daily life. I don't sit there and try to memorize and remember. Y'all, I only know the pattern of my curtain now because of this discrepancy. Otherwise, I still wouldn't know what it was. The only reason I saw that different pattern, y'all, is because my brain reached back into reality and remembered a pattern from my previous curtain and brought it back into this reality and said, okay, that is the pattern that we're looking at, when in fact it wasn't. But the true reality, y'all, the more important reality, is that I was perceiving the hyper-reality that constituted the remaining 98% of the iceberg that was that curtain. And so, to address the elephant in the room right now, is there actually any real science to back up any of this stuff I've been talking about? Well, you'll be surprised to know that yes, there is.
Again, I want to stress these things, they're not just relevant to the Large Hadron Collider, right? They happen all the time in the world around us when you look out the window, right? Essentially, everything that happens in the world is a concatenation over and over again of these basic elementary scattering processes happening over and over and over. So it's the most basic process in nature, and it's astonishing that the most basic process in nature seems to be governed by ridiculously complicated answers, which, however, have incredible simplicity and hidden structures underneath them.
So what you're seeing right now is a video of Dr. Arkani Ahmed, okay, a theoretical physicist, giving a symposium about a recent discovery he made called the Amplituhedron.
The four-dimensional object is hard to visualize. I can show you what one of its three-dimensional faces looks like. Here's one of its three-dimensional faces.
And there are a few important things to know about the Amplituhedron. Number one,
you give me the external momenta of the gluons. That just tells me where to draw these points. I draw this amplituhedron, I compute the volume, that's the amplitude. That's hundreds of pages of Feynman diagrams. Triangulate that space, we're done. We've computed the four-particle amplitude to all loop orders.
Number two,
it's coming from thinking about scattering amplitudes, and you think of it as this beautiful, enormous polytope that lives in an infinite dimensional space.
And most importantly, in my opinion, number three.
And so to conclude, I think we can say that we now have a first, admittedly very baby example of what emergent locality and unitarity, emergent space-time and quantum mechanics can actually look like.
That basically covers all the bases of Donald Hoffman's theory with the added foundation of simplifying scattering amplitudes and bridging the divide between quantum mechanics and relativity, something that science hasn't been able to do for over 100 years. The true reality, y'all, the more important reality, is that I was perceiving the hyper-reality that constituted the remaining 98% of the iceberg that was that curtain. To me, it's more important that the curtain was perceptible and not necessarily the pattern that's on the curtain. That's a kind of insignificant detail that I find kind of laughably like, come on, is that the best you can do? We're really going to throw the baby out with the bathwater because a curtain didn't match? The pattern on that curtain didn't match? Ridiculous. And now, finally and mercifully, we will get into the interview, which was the main purpose of this video to begin with. Now, I will be covering some of the same stuff, okay? There will be some overlap, all right? But I promise I go deeper. Things get way deeper and honestly way scarier than anything that we've covered so far, okay? So stick with me on this. Let's listen.
I mean, I get what you mean, because in a dream, like, I'll look at something and it looks spot on, perfectly real.
Yeah.
I've even, like, for some reason I can't really remember the details from dreams, but like I've lucid dreamed and like looked at the ground and go like, because in my mind, like, does it have the right texture?
Yeah.
And in the dreams it does, but I just have trouble remembering it after.
Yeah.
But in the astral, quote unquote, astral projection state, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
It's more blurry and fuzzy, and it doesn't. In a dream, I feel like I'm looking with my eyes.
Yes, exactly.
In the other state, and not looking with your eyes, it's something different.
And so to me, it's like, so someone can easily come in here and say, well, then it's clearly not real, because, but again, I would say my brain knows what grass looks like. My brain knows what my coffee table looks like. Why, if this is a lucid dream, why wouldn't my brain just go ahead and do the extra step of making it look more like a friggin' coffee table? And so again, in this weird paradoxical way, the fact that it didn't look real proved to me in a way that it was real, which sets up this hilarious, like in order for something to be real, it has to be not real. It's so weird. But so that was that experience. I'm still iffy on what happened there. I do know that it was unlike anything that I've ever experienced in my entire life. I have no compartment to put this into. It wasn't a lucid dream. It wasn't a regular dream.
Yeah, for me, it's completely different than a dream.
Yeah.
And it's definitely different than being awake.
Yep.
And it's just different. I don't know. It's weird.
And so it's very easy for me to say that it's real. Like so you're really leaving your body.
What's real?
What's real? And then, so here's where I can definitely tell you that it's not a lucid dream. If it's anything, it's just a different flavor of lucid dream, right? But here's lucid dreams, insofar as I know them, here's how astral projection is not that. And here's my kind of my logic, my weird logic, and I'm gonna invoke the likeness of Selma Hayek to do this. Selma Hayek, circa 1999, when she was.
It
the
doesn't
hottest,
matter. She's still hot now.
Good point. Very good point. But in my opinion, man, oh my gosh, circa, like there's that scene. Everybody goes for the scene from Dusk Till Dawn, the stripping scene. My favorite one is the Dogma stripping scene. That just is forever seared in my brain. And so,
is she in that movie?
oh yeah, she is. Yeah, I'll play a little clip right now. Yeah, okay. So I'm not joking around when I say this, I swear, y'all, I sound like such a perv here, and I'm sorry, but when you're having a lucid dream, no one can check you on this, right? So it's like anytime I've lucid dreamed, I've always thought of, again, I'm sorry to go here, but I'm like, any crush that I had at the time, I'm like, let's see if I can make them appear, kind of thing. You usually don't have all your wits about you right at the very beginning, so you usually start flying around or something, and you get so excited that you wake up. But there have been several times where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm dreaming. Let me see if I can manifest my crush, right? And it'd be like, some hot chick I know or something like that. But every once in a while, it would be Selma Hayek, right? And specifically trying to manifest her from the scene in Dogma. I'm like, oh, let's see what happens here, kind of thing. And never once was I able to succeed in doing this. I was never able to manifest one of my crushes. I was never able to manifest Selma Hayek. Never happened, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at here with this logic is, if I was so bad at manifesting stuff, right? It's like, hey, I want this to happen, and now this is going to happen, right? It's like, I want Selma Hayek to appear, and boom, she appears, and she's perfectly all dolled up. Like, again, I'm going to show a clip again because I want to. So I was unable to accomplish that. Yet 4 or 5, maybe 6 times now in the past 3 years, I was able to manifest my living room, my garage. Now, my garage was not a really good manifestation, mind you, but my most recent experiences, I damn near perfectly manifested my living room in a very good detail. I mean, not quite perfect like a lucid dream or really looking at it, but I did a really good. I mean, I'll get to it later, but the damn pillows that were on the floor when I woke up. It's like there were specific things, like the water bottle that was on the coffee table. It was on the coffee table when I woke up. Now, granted, I saw all of this before I went to sleep, but still, I'm unable to I can't manifest stuff successfully in a lucid dream. So if it's anything, it's not a lucid dream. Is it really popping out of my body and exploring? I don't know, but it's definitely not a lucid dream. Could it be a different flavor of lucid dream? Sure, I'll cede you that. Like a whole different kind of consciousness that's separate, because it definitely feels separate.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
If it's not really your consciousness really leaving your body, it's at least a different state of consciousness altogether that we can set apart from lucid dreaming or dreaming or the waking light of day. Yeah.
To me, I don't know that like leaving your body would be the right words. I would think it's more like you're just accessing different, if it's not just a different state of consciousness, that whatever, that this is all there is, and it's a different type of dream. I don't know.
So,
but I would think that the space part of it would be kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the Hindu mystics and the Buddhist mystics, they have an opinion on this, right? Because they can access the astral plane on a whim. Like my friend who's really good at meditation here can do it himself. Like he's told me about it. He's like,
who is this?
So it's a guy I met through the podcast actually. And he's like a Hindu. It's hard to describe his full set of beliefs, but he kind of dabbles in Hinduism and Gnosticism and other things. And he's really good at meditation and stuff. And so I asked him one day, I was like, hey, have you ever astral projected? He's like, oh yeah, I can do it whenever I want. He's like, I can just meditate and leave my body if I want. I'm like, holy shit, right? And so according to him and according to several other like sources that I've read about or seen videos about, mysticism and or like Hinduism and Buddhism and their ability to meditate, the astral plane is like, it's a very well-known plane of, it's almost like it's like a copy of this existence. If we were to think of it as the Matrix, right? It's like, apparently the whole astral plane is this. It's like, hey, this is like a copy. It's almost like the sandbox environment. If you were talking about this in like, if we were
Software developers.
yeah, software developers, like, hey, here's your testing environment, here's your sandbox environment, and then here's your go live environment. Go live is the real reality. Sandbox might be, you know, just the dream state, and then your testing environment is like the astral plane. And so it's like basically a copy of this existence, and you can have an astral body. Robert Monroe describes it as being very elastic, like you can legitimately like take your arm and stretch it, and like all this weird stuff, right?
I've never felt like I had any appendages. I just feel like
like
a ball
yeah.
of energy. That's I don't feel like any.
So
it's like I feel like my body is just a round, like a round ball. There's no.
So that's part of it, right? So that's the start usually, and I'm pretty sure that Robert Monroe describes this himself, is that it starts off where you don't know, and you're familiar with Donald Hoffman's theory and all that stuff, right? You know Donald Hoffman.
Donald Hoffman?
You know the guy. You know
I know Albert Hoffman.
Donald Hoffman, man. The Case Against Reality guy.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. I read his book.
So
I forgot the name.
So the way I look at it is like this. It's probably the reason why all this stuff looks so blobby and like has this celestial glow and doesn't quite look right to me is that I haven't become accustomed to form on the other side yet. So when you're an infant who is looking at something for the first time, it's probably not going to look normal or something like until you've created the thought form for what you're looking at, and in order for you to kind of encapsulate it and I don't know, interpret it and build a symbol for it in your brain or something like that, it's probably not going to look right.
Okay, we got to jump in and do a quick science check on this. Is anything that I just said even remotely true scientifically speaking? Actually, believe it or not, yes. Okay, even though we will never know what an infant really sees, because we can't get the infant to tell us, hey, what do you see, right? We can tell by brain scans of an infant, observing things and looking at stuff, is that there's a lot of bleed through in terms of synesthesia in an infant's brain. Like when they look at something, the audio part of the brain will light up, or vice versa. If they hear something, the visual side of the brain will light up. So we know that there's a lot of synesthesia going on, very similar to what happens on psychedelics or any of these high gamma states of consciousness kind of thing. And so, in a roundabout and paradoxical way, an infant theoretically could peer a little bit deeper into this hyper-reality and see the larger part of these cosmic icebergs that are these, objects, these icons that we interact with on a daily basis, theoretically. And so, theoretically, even though there's no way I can prove this, or anyone can prove this really, these infants are looking around at all these objects in their environment, and they are these amorphous blobs of meaninglessness until they start to associate meaning to these objects, in which case they form an icon, and it unlocks not only the meaning, but unlocks the true form of what that icon is. And then, of course, later when the infant's brain matures, all the different senses start to separate, and that synesthesia goes bye-bye until much later when he or she becomes an adult and can do psychedelics or other things. But, don't let your kids do this. Or if you're a kid, definitely don't. Don't.
And so I think that once you're on the other side on the astral plane, it's very much like being a newborn baby. Like you're looking at all this stuff with fresh eyes, and you're creating meaning. You're creating meaning for what you're looking at. So, like Donald Hoffman's theories, like do we need to know the infinite complexity behind a glass of water, or do we need to know just the simple meaning of it? Of like it's a thing that holds water, and when I dump it over like this, it goes into my mouth, and you know. So all that infinite complexity reduces to, it's a thing. And then once you have that understanding, you're able to unlock the vision of what it is. Like, you can see it as a glass for what it is. And I think that the same process is probably happening on the astral plane. And that's why everything looks fuzzy. I probably haven't gotten used to everything and formed a good enough meaningful schema for everything yet. And probably once I do, everything will look as real as that chair. And Donald Hoffman, Robert Monroe says that once he started paying enough attention to what was going on, and once he started getting an idea of what was really out there in the astral plane, he started noticing that he actually did have a body in the astral plane. And he describes it as being very rubbery and stretchy. And there were some other very peculiar things too, that and most astral projection people that go deep enough and recognize their body as well, they always attest to this a silver cord that is attached back down to their body. And so they claim that that's the linkage to their physical existence or their physical body, is that there's always this silver cord. And a lot of people, I don't know why you would try to do this, but people in the astral plane have tried to cut the cord. Like they've tried to break it. They've tried to damage it in some way to completely sever it, and they can never do it, apparently. Or we don't know the people who did.
But the ones that were successful
yeah, exactly.
didn't make it.
Exactly. And so
it's like, oh, I'm in a spacesuit floating off in space. Oh, what's this tether? Let me just cut that right there.
Yeah, or
see what happens.
Or I can see it connected to my body. Like, what kind of idiot does this? It's like, I know that I'm outside, my consciousness is outside of my body, and the only linkage that I see to my body is this cord. Let me cut the motherfucker. It's like, this sounds like a great idea, It's like, what in the world, people? But that's kind of what I think is going on, man, is that it's just a whole other program that your brain needs to pattern. It's a whole nother part of the program, and you're looking at everything not with your human, regular eyes.
Your third eye.
Yeah.
Maybe you need glasses for your third eye.
Exactly. It's like you're looking at all this new stimuli with your astral eyes. And just like your human eyes, when you were born, you need to pattern over everything and make symbols and meaningful icons of what you're looking at. And so I think it's no different in the astral plane. And I think that's specifically why I was unable to make out the true form of the garage door or the Jeep pulling over on top of me. I think that's why everything looks so bizarre and fuzzy and staticky the first few times that I was able to pop out of my body. I further believe that is why when I looked at the pattern that was on my curtain, that it was a different pattern. I think it's because it's like little details in the astral plane probably don't matter in a sense. It's like, is it really important what the actual pattern of the curtain is? Or did your mind correctly pattern that there is a curtain there that you flew into? Like, what's more important, the pattern or the curtain? To me, it's probably more important that the curtain is the curtain at this point in my development of understanding and deciphering the astral plane. Probably later on, when I get more adept at deciphering stuff and creating schemas and icons for it, maybe I will be able to more accurately pattern the pattern.
But then why would you see a different pattern? Why wouldn't you see a blurry pattern on this curtain?
So I think what probably happened is my brain just filled in the missing information. It's like, hey, there's a curtain here. What do we usually see on a curtain? And now, granted, the funny thing is I don't pay much attention to little details like this in my regular light of day. Like before this incident, if anyone came to me and said, what kind of pattern do you have on your curtain? Even though I've had the curtain for about 4 years now, I would be like, I don't know. I'd never pay attention to that crap. Yeah. And that's probably the same reason why I saw just a random, it's like my brain just patterned a random pattern that it's seen before, which happened to be my old curtain that I was actually very familiar with. I do remember those patterns quite well. So
is that what you saw? An old curtain?
Yeah. So I saw the pattern that was on my old curtain. And so I was like, did I time travel or something? I was like, no, I don't think so. I honestly think that these little details probably don't really matter in a sense in the astral plane. It's like I saw, I saw, right? I
know what you mean by that. Yeah, but maybe everybody else doesn't. But.
It's so. I guess if I were to try to put that into words, what it is like it's not that I saw it; it's that I perceived the energy form of a curtain, and my brain filled in the rest of the information that is kind of almost probably immaterial. And here's a good example of this. So. Sorry. And here's a good example of this. So there's a book. What's it called? It's up there somewhere.
All of Science.
Explorations in Consciousness. That book is a really awesome book about astral projection. And the guy in that book talks about how one day, so he's very incredibly talented at astral projection, also happens to be a scientist, so he puts a lot of like scientific rigor into what's going on. And so his girlfriend at the time, one time they astral projected, she lived like in another state, and he wanted to go visit her. He had gotten off the phone with her and he went to sleep, and he's like, okay, if I astral project tonight, I'm going to go visit her. So sure enough, he astral projects. He goes over to her house, and what he notices is he gets these very trippy, bizarre, mystical kind of like creepy things. Like he saw vampires floating around her living room and stuff, and parts of her house. And of course, you can write that off as being like, okay, well, obviously vampires aren't real, especially floating vampires that are floating around and shit like that, right? So he wrote the whole thing off. He woke up the next day and talked to his girlfriend. He's like, hey, so what did you end up doing after I got done talking to you? And she's like, oh, I watched a vampire movie and went to sleep. And so it's like, so what part of this isn't real and what part is? It's like clearly those vampires that were floating around aren't real, but the fact that it's such an amazing coincidence that it's vampires and she just got done watching a vampire movie, there is some degree of some kind of realness going on here. And I feel like that's what the astral plane is. It's like this bizarre place where you don't probably have a lot of causal, in terms of causality, it's probably stuff doesn't make sense, but it probably makes sense in a synchronistic way because of this kind of weird stuff. And so like what is real and what's not, we don't know. And I also point to there's this amazing documentary called, I think it's called The Nightmare. And I believe it's on Amazon Prime or Hulu or something like that. It's on one of the streaming services right now. Mm-hmm. It's called The Nightmare, and it's about people who have sleep paralysis. Mm-hmm. And there are in this documentary examples of people who astral project as well. And there's this unbelievable account of this guy who is sleeping, next to his girlfriend, and they're both asleep. He wakes up and he has one of his typical, nightmare, you know what the origin of nightmare is. It's like the origin of the word nightmare is, it's people who have sleep paralysis, and they would always see this sinister demon, mm-hmm. and it would come and sit on their, they would see this sinister demon, and it would come and sit on their chest, and they called it the nightmare. And hence the name of the documentary. But so this guy has his usual dream, or his sleep paralysis experience, which he claims to be very real. People who have these experiences, they are incredibly...
You never had it?
No, I've never had it.
I've had it several times in my life.
Where you've seen like the dark demon
it's
kind of
terrifying.
See, there you go. So you're one of these people.
But then my daughter saw something on YouTube about it, and it's like, is this real? I was like, yeah, something, but like it's happened to me before, and it's not scary. It's just like you feel like, oh, you just can't move, but it's f***ing terrifying.
But you've seen the demon and stuff?
Not like detailed, but yeah, there's like a demon ground. The last time it happened, I was like screaming back at it, and I couldn't move, and then I woke up.
So, by the way...
You've never had this happen?
No, not once.
I thought everybody did.
No. Next time that happens, though, throw the name Jesus Christ at it. I guarantee you it's gone. Guarantee you. If that happens again, try it out. And let me know, because I'd be
probably
curious.
Happen tonight now.
There you go. but apparently... So there's one woman on this series that was plagued by this stuff for like 10, 15 years or something like that.
And I hate the sound of the noise.
So like this woman, it happened to like a lot, and very, very incredibly terrifying.
It's like almost like spirits or demons like kind of like screaming at you.
And one night it was so particularly terrifying. She was atheist, but she was so tormented and so so terrified.
And then I can sense a presence standing over me.
That she just reached into the bag of tricks or whatever and just came out, and she's like, I don't know, let me try using Jesus.
And I just said, I remember this guy, his name is Jesus, and I'm going to use his name right now. And I'm going to say just in Jesus' name, you get out, or I said something to that effect.
She's like, okay, in the name of Jesus, I command you to leave, and it was gone.
And I suddenly sensed that the demons or the thing that was happening to me, that evil presence, just left, gone.
And she's like, ever since that day, no problems ever. And the end of her interview was like, she legitimately said, she's like, there is power in the name, and she became a Christian. It's pretty amazing.
And it was amazing. It was like a feeling of victory. They never came back. I wasn't even a Christian then. I actually abhorred religion. I learned very late in my life that the name of Jesus has power, and that's how I became a Christian.
But so this particular guy, he's laying next to his girlfriend. He wakes up into the sleep paralysis state, which is probably very similar to the hypnagogic vibratory state on an astral projection experience. So he wakes up, and there's this like 8 or 9 foot tall demon with glowing red eyes in his room.
You are going to die.
And it's speaking to him and saying stuff like, "You're going to die. I'm going to kill you." I forget all the terrible, nasty
I've
threats.
never had any. It's just like a scary presence. For me.
And that's one thing he pointed out. He goes, the demon said to him, it said, "I know who you are."
You know who I am.
You don't know
who I am right now, but I know you, and you know me.
He's absolutely terrified. At the peak of him being just freaked out by this, and he can't move. He's just looking at this thing, can't move. At the peak of him being terrified here, his girlfriend wakes up screaming bloody murder. And so now he's trying to contend with like, hey, I was just freaked out by this demon, but now my girlfriend is screaming like she's being murdered right in front of me here. So he tends to her. He's like, hey, honey, what happened? What's going on? And she says that she had basically the exact same dream, the sleep paralysis experience that he had, except there's a slight difference here. So she says that she kind of woke up into a sleep paralysis state, and she saw a black demonic cat with glowing eyes sitting on top of her chest, speaking like garbled, like very demonic sounding gibberish into like speaking directly into his ear. And so, and then she got freaked out because it was very sinister and threatening, and she woke up screaming. So these two people had basically the exact same experience, a demonic presence that was speaking evil things to them in a threatening manner, a dark, shadowy figure with glowing eyes. The rest of that is immaterial, and here's why. Like the difference is there because a lot of people, well, one was a cat and was sitting on the guy's chest versus a 9 foot tall one that is standing up next to him. And this is where we get into Donald Hoffman's theory of there's so much cosmic stuff beyond this physical existence that we can't associate with because it's so foreign and alien to us that we cannot associate it with anything that we have on this planet or in this universe, or associate it with, or do any kind of association or patterning. And so what I think the human brain does is it takes a best guess of what it could be. And it could make a mistake of where it is, what exactly it is. But I think that it will understand a threat for a threat. It will understand a demonic force for a demonic force. The rest of the details are immaterial. It's a black thing with red eyes, and it's speaking evil stuff. Where it is and what actual manifestation it has taken is immaterial, in my opinion.
I mean, for me, there was nothing that ever that detailed. There wasn't glowing eyes or anything. It was just like nothing that clear. So I mean, you could fill in whatever you want.
Yeah. So, but to me that is basically evidence that it's real because it's co-witnessed by two different people. The same event. The details are a little different, but remember, only really a little different. To me, if someone's like, "Dude, you're talking about a black cat with red eyes versus an 8 foot tall demon with red eyes," like there's a big difference here. I'm like, is there really? Or was the point like made, the fact that it was this evil presence that was saying messed up demonic stuff. What we would really be seeing is so cosmically freaking bizarre and out there that there's no way that we can make sense of anything. So our brain patterns over it with something scary. Now therein lies a bit of a chink in the armor here, because this all could be just your brain not knowing what it's looking at and by default making something scary because that's the default. It's better to be scared of something that you don't know than to be welcoming of something that you don't know, because otherwise you'd be welcoming something that could harm you. It's an evolutionary advantage for you to be scared of the unknown because, again, you could be harmed, you could be killed, you could be injured, whatever. So if your brain sees something that's so cosmically bizarre and it doesn't know what it is, it could be that your brain just papers over it with something scary. In fact, this happens a lot when you wake up out of a dream. I'll never forget, there's a lamp right next to my bed. And I had, in my dream, gotten in a gunfight with someone and ended up shooting them. And when I woke up out of my dream, my lamp was the bloody torso of the guy that I had just shot in. And there was bullet holes in it. You could see blood and stuff coming out. And it was a terrifying dream for me because I don't want to kill someone. If I did end up shooting someone, I would be devastated. And so I woke up from this dream absolutely devastated. And there was this dead guy sitting on my nightstand with blood and bullet holes coming out of him. And then it slowly took form into my lamp. And the lamp and the guy, it wasn't as if the guy was shaped like a lamp. They looked nothing alike. There's no way that you could look at a lamp and confuse it with a guy, yet it looked like a guy. So I think when my brain came out of that sleep, it just saw this formless kind of stuff, and it saw something there, and it just free associated and created a dude. And then when I started becoming more conscious of what was going on, it dissolved into the real lamp that I saw. And so could that be an explanation of what's going on with that, a demonic figure that these two people saw? Possibly. But the fact that it was co-witnessed is what really kind of throws a wrench into those gears. It could be coincidence, mind you, but I find that to be a very bizarre and very chance, like way too much to chance kind of coincidence. So that's kind of my theory on this all, is that the astral plane is real. It's as real as this reality is. It's just a higher slice of reality of which that we don't have the perception history. Like we haven't perceived enough and built schemas for anything out there, and our brain is going to pattern over that with psychedelic, trippy, freaking fractal, kaleidoscopic, demonic, scary stuff. That's my theory.
It occurs to me, like, if you were to say what's real, usually kind of the definition is more than one person could see it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the general definition.
Yep.
Because other than that, it's like you don't really know. You have no way of knowing what's actually there or not unless somebody else can see it.
So agreed. And I would also tack onto that. I would tack on that someone else that is sharing the same level of perception that you are.
True,
so
with the same sensors, yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, like if you're in the same mental state, like if you're both in the same kind of REM sleep and you wake up out of that and you're in, like if you both pop into the sleep paralysis mode at the same time and you're able to see the same thing, that's quite different than someone popping into that sleep paralysis mode and someone that's completely, awake and they can't see it, right? So, so we have two different states of consciousness. Of course, person over here is going to be like, there's nothing there. But then person over here is like, well, there's a demon on me. And then, but there's a sleep person over here that wakes up into the sleep paralysis and sees the same demon. So it's like, to me, it has to be the same conscious state. And that's why, I mean, dude, I have one of my good friends. You're really not supposed to trip with someone, like in terms of like a psychedelic experience. You're really not supposed to go deep with someone tripping also as deep. It can be very dangerous. So anyone out there who is listening to this, don't do it unless you are very experienced, which I am. And this guy was too. And that's really the only reason we did it, but still dangerous. But we saw twice, unless the guy is lying to me, we both saw the same thing happen twice. He was telling me about blueprints. He was talking about a time where him and his friend got stuck in the rafters of a building or something like that. And they were tripping. And He's like, yeah, man. It's like my friend went up into the attic and he got lost. So I went up there to try to find him, and I saw him like leaning up against one of the boards of the rafters. And next thing you know, I found myself leaning up against the board of the rafters. And he was like, we almost became part of the building at that point. And it's like we were part of this like big blueprint. And when he did this with his hand, I saw like what I can only amount to a tesseract of like blueprint polygons coming out of his hand. And he stopped when he did that too. He's like, holy shit. And it was like, did you just see that? I was like, yeah, I just saw that. And we both kind of described the same thing. We were like, there was like this freaking like hexagonal, like freaking polytope that you just pulled out of thin air when you did that. And there was another experience with him too, where we both, again, unless he's lying to me, where we both saw these entities approach his table.
Mm-hmm. I remember you telling me that story. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was talking about the riffraff of entities that he had in his back place. Now, granted, he told me about them before I saw them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been that the power of suggestion, he was like, dude, there's some critters in the back. And then, of course, I go back there and I see those critters because he just created that imagery in my head. But I authentically don't think that. I legitimately do think that there are shared experiences by people in this that share the same state of consciousness. And your typical person that you'll meet out at a bar that's a skeptic of like, oh, you never saw entities on psychedelics. It's like, unless I can see it too. Mm-hmm. Like if you say there's a ghost right over there and you can see it, but I can't, there's a problem. And then, but my counteraction to this would be, do you have the same level of gamma in your brain that I do at this time? Or like, is your state of lucidity and consciousness at the same level as mine? Yes or no? Because if not, then technically I could be very well seeing a larger slice of reality than you are. And if I am, then I therefore could possibly see things that you can't. And that doesn't make my reality any less real than yours. In fact, I would say it's more real. Because again, I'm seeing a higher slice of reality. And so I would like to redefine what the word real means in the first place. And to me, the word real is simply this. It is a stimulus, whether other people can see it or not. It's a stimulus that causes you to change your behavior. That's it. That's all realness is. It's like this thing, like, so for me, it was the vision of God and the communication with God. That was so real to me that I changed my life. I changed my behavior. The only, like, if that wasn't real, I can throw it all away. And so, to me, that's what because everything is solipsistic in a way through your own head. That's all it can mean, whether it's someone else can see it or not. And whether we can agree on what, it's you who matters. And it's like, if it changes your behavior, that's what real is, in my opinion.
I think we should leave it at that.
I think we should.
And so to sum up everything from the interview and before, there seems to be this hyper-cosmic reality that overlays and overlaps and interacts with this reality, okay? And there seems to be these cosmic objects in this hyper-reality, the tips of the iceberg of which dip into this reality, and we paper over the infinite complexity of the meaning of those objects with these simple symbols that represent basically icons that we can interact with. On psychedelics, in the astral projection experience, in deep transcendental meditation, during seizures in the temporal lobe of your brain, you get to peek beyond the tiny sliver of existence that humans have evolved to experience, and you get to see a little bit further and further into these cosmic hyper reality realms, okay? And you get to see these icons like a cup and a pen and stuff for the cosmic objects that they truly are. They begin to lose meaning, and they begin to look like these amorphous alien objects. Your brain starts to pattern over the confusion with anything that it remembers from the past, and there you go. Therein lies your inconsistencies there. But that's not the end of the story. The reality is that this cup is still a cup, and it still exists in both realities simultaneously, right? So whatever your brain may be misinterpreting in the moment, the reality of this cup is still here. So that means, I hate to get all creepy with y'all, but those demons that those people were perceiving, y'all, could entirely be real, and that their brains were just patterning over it with anything that could represent the actual real threat that was behind this cosmic force. Bottom line, y'all, cosmic freaking forces, the psychedelic realm, the astral projection realm, that hyper reality, y'all, is as real as it gets, and it is as scary as it gets, and it is as cosmic as it gets, and you better freaking believe it. Be careful when you're doing this kind of stuff, whether it's astral projection or psychedelics or whatever. You are entering into a real reality, okay? That's my interpretation. That's my takeaway. And I'm going to continue to explore. There are tactics and maneuvers and, things that you can employ to protect yourself, y'all. And I highly recommend that you research that and be careful and journey on. Love you all.